up, everybody? My name is Mitchell Brewer. This is Pumpkin. If you see him at the bottom of the screen, just ignore him because that's just what I have to do with this cat around. But this ain't about my cat. This ain't about me. This is about some potentially big NASCAR news, and it all stems from the latest Dale Earnhardt Jr. download, which just dropped tonight. Well, last night when you're seeing this video. And there are some major news nuggets that were touched on during this podcast. And it's funny because this week I thought, Bristol just happened. We're not gonna see a lot of news. Come on, it's the off weekend. We're all tired out from an extra day at Bristol. There's not gonna be any extra news. Are you kidding me? No way. Well, apparently, that was a lie. That's not true at all. So Marcus Smith on Dale Jr.'s podcast, the big thing that everybody is talking about right now is that there could be a roof on Bristol Motor Speedway, and this is something that apparently has been discussed for a little bit of time, and the fact that they're talking about it sure makes it seem like that, who knows, maybe in 5 years, perhaps? Well, on the topic of 5 years, Dale Jr. and Marcus Smith were talking about what could potentially be happening with Bristol Motor Speedway in 5 years, with Dale Jr., I believe, saying something along the lines that he believes that there's going to be 2 dirt races at Bristol, and the track's going to fully become a dirt track. Whereas Marcus Smith says, in 5 years, I want a roof on Bristol. And this was his exact quote, 5 years, we need a roof on Bristol. And the inspiration from this idea, Marcus Smith said, came from when they hung up the big, gigantic TV in the middle of the racetrack, Colossus. You got all those wires up there. You got all those, whatever you want to call them, beams that connect it, that make Colossus stable and secure, especially during wicked weather, which we saw last weekend at Bristol. And Marcus Smith saw all that. He saw that, and he was like, you know what? I think we could put a roof on this place. And credit to him, a roof this weekend would have helped. We would have had the Bristol Dirt Race. We wouldn't have had a problem. We would have had the heat races on Saturday. We would have had the races on Sunday. But man, that just seems, I don't know, what are your guys' thoughts on that? That seems crazy to me. And I know it's possible. Like, this is going to be a way out of left field comparison. But like, growing up, I always went to, like, I'm from Minnesota, so I always saw Monster Jam at the Metrodome. And, like, there's a lot of vehicles in that. Obviously not 40 race cars. Obviously not a lot of race cars. But still, there's a good amount of monster trucks driving around the Metrodome. And it worked. It definitely worked. I mean, it came every single year. I believe Monster Jam still tours indoor facilities. It's not something that's not, I don't think it's something that's not possible, if that's the right way of saying it. It's not possible. That's probably the right way of saying that. I mean, we see it with the Chili Bowl each and every year, but that's a much smaller venue, and it sounds crazy. And you know what? To NASCAR and Marcus Smith's credit, a lot of these new ideas that are coming out, they sound crazy. The Roval sounded crazy. Success. The Bristol Dirt Race sounded crazy. I'm going to say it was a success. I know it might be not the shared consensus, but I thought it was a really good race. Maybe a roof will work. And I just find that fascinating. And I don't know. I personally, that's probably the craziest one. Believe it or not. I believe the Bristol Dirt Race. I believe putting dirt on Daytona before we get a roof on a NASCAR facility. That just sounds crazy to me, and maybe I'm way out of line there, but that just seems nuts to me. And yeah, so this wasn't the only thing Marcus Smith had to talk about in regards to Bristol. I'm going to hit a couple of small things before jumping into other topics that don't relate to Bristol, but there's a lot in this podcast, and relating to Bristol, this is another one of the interesting things, and I'm going to leave the link for the full podcast down below. I encourage you to go and listen to it, and go listen to it every week, because the Dale Jr. podcast, quality stuff, and you learn something new every week, and if you can watch it on NBCSN, it's great stuff. I love listening to every week. Just from the knowledge standpoint, let alone the entertainment value, it's a very good listen. I'm not the biggest podcast guy in the world, but that is one I will sit down every single week and listen to. I'm not getting paid or anything to say that. That's just me saying, as a guy that covers NASCAR, I think that's one of the podcasts that you need to be listening to on a weekly basis. But getting back to the main point at hand, one thing that really kind of fascinated me about the topic of the Bristol Dirt Race this past weekend was the fact that the decision to run another Bristol Dirt Race, which was announced during the race for 2022, that wasn't made until this weekend. Like, Marcus Smith was talking about it. They weren't 100% sold on it until Saturday and Sunday, which is crazy because we hadn't even seen any races on Saturday and Sunday. All we had saw was practice, and I guess Saturday you can say the one lap of the heat race that went terribly bad because of the wicked weather, not because of the racing surface. But he knew more than me because after even just watching the opening segment of this, or the opening stage of the truck race, I thought to myself, you know what? This needs to be a yearly thing. And during the race, I thought it was weird because I saw guys like Bob Pockra saying that, oh, this is probably not going to happen again. Dale Jr. himself in this podcast even says that he didn't believe it just because of how much work and effort goes into Bristol. And Marcus Smith does talk about that, about how it pretty much took from the beginning of January until up to the first races that were ran on the Bristol dirt track for this track to fully be ready. And it's just fascinating me, man. It's crazy. And the craziest part about all that is the fact that that decision wasn't made until this weekend. When they announced that during the race, you had to think that, okay, this was a plan that was all along, that this was going to be a multi-year deal, whether it's 2, whether it's 3, whether it's scheduled for the rest of time. This is going to be a multi-year deal for the Bristol dirt track. And sorry, I lost my train of thought, but it was going to be a multi-year deal, and that was something that was decided way before this weekend. But that was something that Mark Smith says, no, we didn't decide until this weekend, which, interesting. It's just fascinating to me. And if, they announced it during the race, and during a part of the race where I think it was right after stage 2, where visibility was a very clear problem during the race, where if there was any big skepticism with the race, it probably came during that segment. And they said, you know what, let's announce it. And to their credit, it worked very well. Mark Smith says they've already had 5,000 people renew tickets for next year already, which is crazy since the race just happened. I'm posting this on Wednesday, but I'm recording it Tuesday night. So within essentially 24 hours, they've already had 5,000 people renew their tickets, which is a pretty big number, especially in a COVID world. And another thing on the last topic of the Bristol dirt race before we move on to our next topics is the fact that 36,000 tickets were sold for this weekend's race at Bristol, which I don't know a whole lot about the pandemic numbers and how many people are allowed to attend things, but that's a pretty big number for post-COVID. And I mean, we're still technically in COVID. I'm not going to say technically because we still are in COVID. And that's a big number. And obviously, we'll see if anything bad comes as a result of it. But I think there's going to be a wave of I think there's going to be a trend. I think as we get closer and closer to, I would say even September, I think we're going to be seeing more and more racetracks and athletic facilities in general. We just saw the NFL today say that they want 100% capacity for their stadiums come the fall. And I think that's going to be something that's going to become really popular in the coming months, especially with people getting vaccinated and everything like that. I think these stadiums are going to want to open up, and we'll see if it works or not. I'm hopeful. I really hope it does work. I haven't been to a race since September of 2019. I want to go back to one, and I have plans to go back to one, but I want to see a full crowd. I mean, I think you want to see. I think everybody wants to get back to a little bit of normalcy, especially with events, whether it's NASCAR races, NFL games, concerts, what have you. I think people are itching to have that back. And I saw a comment the other day where it's like, even the most boring sporting events or whatever are going to sell out for tickets when restrictions are loosened up and there can be 100% capacity. And you know what? I think that's true. I think we're going to see that with a lot of things in the first year or so after the pandemic. I think people are really going to appreciate the ability of going out and doing all of that. And it's good to see that Bristol is right there and kind of leading the charge. And hopefully it goes well for them. I hope that we don't see any negative headlines about how this became a COVID super spreader or something like that. Hopefully it all goes well for Bristol. Now, moving on into a couple of possibilities on the schedule. We're going to start with one that seems like maybe it's a little bit more likely, and then the other one is better than what we thought the possibilities of it were before, but still very unlikely given the circumstances. So let's start with the one that I think is more possible, and that is racing on a green Sonoma. If you've seen the pictures of the racetrack going around recently, the racetrack looks absolutely gorgeous, by the way, and it's very green, which is not at all the case when NASCAR races there in the summer. And Dale Jr. point blank asked Marcus Smith, hey, is it possible that we may see a Bristol spring race, which has constantly seen weather issues, constantly just been in the thick of things when it comes to weather delays and just severe weather, whether it's flash flooding, whether it's snowstorms, whatever. It seems like that's a race that maybe could benefit from being pushed back a little bit. And then you see Sonoma, which is just a beautiful racetrack in itself. What maybe we should go there, especially since we have this West Coast swing at the beginning of the season. And Marcus Smith, he didn't say no to it. And I believe that there could be a potential for Sonoma getting pushed up the schedule. This comment he said maybe we will one day. He did not say no. He did not say it's not possible at all. He did say that the weather in Sonoma during this time of year is wet and it does rain a lot and could produce issues like Bristol. But the fact that we have rain tires and the fact that that's been something that we've seen as a success in mainly the NASCAR Xfinity Series, maybe we could see that at Sonoma. Maybe we could see Sonoma becoming one of those races where, hey, we can move this race with Bristol, push Bristol back to where the weather is a lot better for fans, and move up to Sonoma where we can not only have racing and not have to worry about maybe going to Monday as much, but we also get this beautiful racetrack that, I mean, it's still going to be Sonoma, obviously, but we get a new version of Sonoma, and I think that'd be kind of cool. I'm all for it. I think that would be the smartest of ideas, especially since it doesn't really make sense when you look at the schedule as a whole, where you have the West Coast swing, which is all bunched together, California, Las Vegas, Phoenix. You have Phoenix and Vegas in the end of the schedule, which makes a little bit more sense. I think they could bunch those races together too in a perfect world. But then you got Sonoma, which is all by its lonesome in the middle of the season. And I think it would be beneficial for NASCAR to maybe decide, hey, let's push that up, put that part of the West Coast swing, and truly highlight the West Coast racetracks that NASCAR has to offer, because it feels like Sonoma is being left out of that, and I don't think Sonoma needs to be left off. But again, that's my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion on that topic of today. Let's talk about North Wilkesboro, which I feel like everybody has a topic on. And Marcus Smith shared the latest update on it, just saying, we haven't given up on it. We're thinking about it. We're working on it. No promises, but we have not forgotten about it. That's the big message. If we can think of a way to make something happen there, we will. Now, you can look at that multiple ways, where it's NASCAR wants to go back to North Wilkesboro, and they want to do whatever it takes, or it's more of a, hey, listen, we'd love to go back to North Wilkesboro. There's a lot that has to be done for us to go back to North Wilkesboro, but we would love to make it happen in some sort of universe, but we just don't know how likely that is. And I'm more of the latter camp. I don't think, at least seeing photos, it would take a lot. And I think everybody can at least agree that that would take a lot to get back to North Wilkesboro. And maybe it's a pipe dream, maybe it's not. I think it kind of is, but it's cool that they're considering this. And, I mean, for a long time there, it seemed like Nashville Fairgrounds was kind of a pipe dream for getting a cup racing that race is coming up to. That race is coming. Could be coming to the Cup Series schedule very soon, and who knows? Maybe the same thing will happen with North Wilkesboro, and I'm kind of intrigued. There's the right words. On what your guys' thoughts on North Wilkesboro race, and do you think it's possible? First of all, I think that's the biggest question that we need to ask ourselves with this: is do you think it's possible? Because obviously, an entire major renovation would need to be necessary for anything to happen at North Wilkesboro. Do you think that's possible? Let me know it down in the comments. Let me know your comments on or your thoughts on anything that I talked about today. I hope you have a great rest of your day. Who knows? Maybe there'll be more NASCAR news during a week, which I thought was going to be really quiet. We'll see if there is. Who knows? Maybe I'll have another video on this lovely, lovely Wednesday afternoon. Hey, it's my birthday today. Pumpkin's my birthday. Maybe we'll have more NASCAR news. Maybe that'll be the NASCAR God's gift to me. I hope so. I hope to see you all again real soon. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And yeah, be sure to like and subscribe before you go. Thank you.